the amount of young adults these days that have never had sex, have never had any intimacy in their life, have never had a partner it's astronomical. It's like it's over 50%. It's in this like 60 something percentile, which is crazy.
No. Yeah.
Because you're just seeing there's a lack of physical intimacy. And if they're not getting that from, if they're not getting physical intimacy, sexual or not, but just like hug and love and stuff like that from a partner, they're probably not getting it from their parents. I imagine at that age, most families are like totally like, they lose that sense of actual physical contact once you are like after a childhood. And they're probably not getting it from their bros and their friends, you know what I mean? Of just like even hug and touch and anything like that. So you're basically, that part of you basically atrophies, right? And then you look at how people feel around isolation and depression and anxiety and stuff like that. And it's really interesting to, on that point, how many people, men, come to the work that I do or the groups that I run. And such a big part of it is building brotherhood and community and getting guys just together. And how many guys just say, like, I don't have one single friend in my life. Like many of them, like, I don't have one friend. Right. And so I can hit this from a bunch of different angles, and we don't have to necessarily go down this path. But this thing you're speaking to in the Western society about rugged, the capitalistic rugged individual, and I have no issue with capitalism or making money. I'm a business owner. It's not that, but the rugged individual, like fucking do it yourself, build your life, attain and expand, is the path of an isolated, disconnected life from yourself, from the planet, from other people, because you have to be disconnected in order to
keep going,
go through this world and like make it without having to feel the immensity of grief and pain and sorrow for what we're doing to each other and what we're doing to ourselves and what we're doing to our mental health and what we're doing to the planet. You have to numb, which is just drives these people down a total war path against themselves with isolation and addiction and endless consumption, etc. Right? So it's a spiritual problem, man. It's a sickness, right?
It's almost as though the system that we live in and choose to, or at least we probably don't feel like we choose to, but choose to take part in, if that channel of climb the ladder, whatever the fuck that ladder might be, is training us to become a bit more or a lot more psychopathic, sociopathic, suppress the feelings, suppress the connection, because numb it, and you look at the intoxicants that are celebrated here in our culture. Caffeine, great for for productivity, celebrated fucking everywhere, man. Alcohol, great for numbing. No one's getting, well, some people get drunk and get emotional because their inhibitions are down, but it's not exactly like your awareness expands. You take mushrooms or smoke weed, that's why people freak out, because they become more aware of themselves.
You become conscious.
Right?
You start having to feel things that you've maybe never felt or have been suppressed, and a lot of that suppression you inherited from your culture, from your parents, or from other people. It's not even your fault. It's like, you're feeling something, you eat some good mushrooms or something like that, or any psychedelic. I have a pretty extensive, psychedelic experience in the past. And those things, I'll back up and say, I don't think there's a bad trip. I don't think that exists. I think what happens is people have revelations or things come up that have always existed inside them that are so uncomfortable. They freak out and they don't want to be with it. And it's like, no, dude, that was there all along. That was like 5 centimeters underneath the layer of bullshit and numbing and consciousness that you operate on, and it's right there beneath you, and you wonder why you need benzos and anti-anxieties and antidepressants, because that is your subconscious. It's that whole vibration of all these things you don't want to look at, and then you give someone mushrooms, and they've seen this. To speak to the piece around mental health, it's like sometimes it's just one strong trip of mushrooms, man, and people are never taking their medications again for these types of issues, because they just process the stuff that has been bubbling away.
And it's something that I've learned recently. I mean, I kind of knew this, but recently I had a guy on my podcast. His name's Dane. He has a organization called Heart-Led Warriors, and it's like he does men's retreats and couples retreats with his wife. I'm actually going to go on the men's retreat soon, which I'm excited
you,
and I'm fucking terrified as well because it's going to be brutal. But I'm going. I'm going to do it.
It'll be great, man.
Yeah, man. It'll be cool. It'll be really good. And he was telling me about the relationship between our unconscious or subconscious, I'm not sure what the correct term is, and how much of our behavior is actually controlled by our unconscious mind, not our conscious mind.
I would say almost all of it.
Yeah, he was saying it's 95% is unconscious. And when you just thinking about why is it that there's only a select chunk of the population that has done psychedelics or is interested in psychedelics, I think that it's because people unconsciously know that by doing psychedelics, because people love to get fucked up. There's very few people who haven't been intoxicated in some way or another in their life. Very few. So people love to get fucked up. But why does a majority of the population go, oh, I'm not doing psychedelics? I think it's because their unconscious knows that it's going to show you yourself, because that's whenever someone, because I bang on about mushrooms.
They're not afraid of, it would be illogical for them to be afraid that the psychedelic is going to like kill them. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's totally safe. Yeah.
You could eat mushrooms until you're fucking blue in the face and like you're just going to end up throwing up and having a really crazy week. But like you're not going to die, right? You know, but that's exactly it. I have some family members that I've been coaxing, like, you know, this would be really good for you, and they're like, I couldn't be with whatever would come up. So they know, right? And that's why do we turn to the alcohol? Because it has pretty much the opposite effect, right? It's like it depresses all that, right? It kind of and if you get drunk enough, you just don't even fucking remember what happened. So even if you did cry and have a big emotional release, you're like, I cried. You wake up in a puddle of puke, right? So it's
opposite.
It's very telling, right? It's kind of interesting. I've thought of this before too. We awaken our body with stimulants as soon as we can, essentially, for most people, first thing in the morning. And then at the end of the day, you wash it all down with depressants, right? And so that says a lot about that little microcosm of the average kind of Westerner's experience or person's experience, really worldwide. I think coffee is probably the biggest, I'm pretty sure it's the biggest consumed beverage outside of water in the world.
Wow.
It just says a lot about where our consciousness is directed, right? And psychedelics are not, they're not fun all the time. They can be, but they're not. They're hard work, right? Yeah. And so people just don't want to do that heavy lifting.
That's it, man. Like and I've talked about this so many times. I mean, I bang on about it all the time. But it's
we can go anywhere, man. I don't care.
But I'll talk about it for the rest of my life. I haven't done psychedelics for 10 years, maybe.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, it's still that and the birth of my daughter are the two equal most profound experiences of my existence. And they have, the amount of growth that I've been through since becoming a dad, she's now 2, is equal to the amount of growth I did in 6 hours on my first mushroom trip.
Yeah.
So it's like that, you know, that's an invaluable experience. And don't get me wrong, man, I've had what would be considered a bad trip, and it was traumatic.
Totally.
And I've also had experiences that, you know, doing, I think it was, when I was doing DMT, I was like, I can't believe this is real. Why is everyone not talking about this? I can't believe this exists. It was like that. Have you seen that Mike Tyson quote where he's like, no, yes. It's like that. It's like, oh my God, this is life. This is a real thing. It's so removed from, it's just, it's profound. There's no other words. There's no words.
Well, then I think you put it, you know, that's the right question, is why isn't everybody experiencing this? And aside from people's fears, and without going down the too conspiratorial lane,
hey man, put the tinfoil hat on, mate. You've come.
There's a lot of gatekeepers that wouldn't want us having that experience. Do you know what I mean?
That was the first thing that came to my mind. I was like, I know why this is illegal.
that's a very hard population to control, because it brings you into a state of consciousness where you feel true unity, oftentimes with other people, with the collective consciousness of humanity. You feel oftentimes true unity with the biosphere, with the earth, with the planet, with the non-human species and stuff like that. And that's very counterintuitive to the agendas and the goals of GDP and growing nations and war and all of the isms in the world, all the dogmas, right? We'd have to let go of all of that, because when you kind of break through that threshold of all these beliefs and you go kind of even sometimes beyond time, beyond, right? You go beyond all these different systems that we've essentially agreed to construct our reality. That's all it is. It's some sort of, it's a covert contract that we've all agreed this is the way the world works, and this is the calendar we use, and this, you know, if you haven't done psychedelics, you listen to this, it sounds like a crock of shit, or it might totally out there, but you move beyond all of that, and then you realize like what's really important, or what it means to be human, right? And a lot of the work that I do, psychedelics are an integral part. If people choose to work with me, it can be a part of it, because they're able to move the dial in ways that a conversation or a men's retreat simply can't. It's kind of like it's like a slingshot to a level of consciousness that you can't stay at, because I don't think our system or our body or our nervous system, we just don't have we haven't developed the capacity to live there, but to pull behind the curtains and just look and see what's possible can be really revolutionary for someone walking a path where they want to be a more free human being.
Well, I have a theory on this, and tell me what you think about it. I think that place is the beginning of where we go when we die. I think that's where our consciousness goes.
Yeah.
So and then there's part of me that kind of thinks maybe we shouldn't be doing things like, you know, like DMT and stuff, because that's not for now. That's for then. That's for when we die. And look, this is all just, you know, a theory that I'm coming up with. But yeah, there's part of me that kind of thinks, you know, you hear about people who do way too much psychedelics, and like,
100%.
I know a guy, a friend of mine in the States, who got a DMT vape. So it's just like a weed vape, but it's fucking DMT, and you can just hit it all the time, you know, and he's just like, you know, just blasting off. And you hear about people who are doing this kind of anyone who's done it knows what I mean. Like to how crazy it is to think about doing that often is, it's crazy. It's and yeah. So I kind of think like, is that going to ruin the afterlife experience? If you've done it too many times, you're like, oh yeah, I've been here heaps of times. I know. You know, and maybe you're not allowed in. Maybe that's what hell is. You weren't supposed to come here. This was
denied.
Not.
They look at your psychedelic scorecard and the heaven's gates, and they're like, "Oh, you took too much, man,
dude. You've punched this card way too many times. You're not allowed in here. We told you that." Yeah, the machine elves. Yeah.
Well, exactly. You know, it's interesting you said this, that you related to death, because a lot of the work that I do, in a lot of different lineages too, that you hear from, whether it's meditative lineages from the East or psychedelic realms, or in South America, working with plants like ayahuasca and stuff like that. A lot of these experiences, whether they're ingesting psychedelics or not, and these lineages, spiritual lineages, are all about preparing to die. Right? And so in
something that we have no relationship with here in our culture.
And on walking that path, in the preparation of death and getting familiar with what the experience may be like, right? It might be like this. It actually gives you a little bit more liberty in your life, because you begin to value your life more. You certainly begin to fear less. Like, I've certainly been in situations on psychedelics that, like, I really thought I was going to die. Yeah. And I didn't. Obviously, I'm still here. But that experience it shifts your perspective of life, and it also shifts the consciousness, one would hope, that you approach death with, right? Because death is a scary, ominous thing, and at least for myself, and I imagine other people agree, when it does come for you, you hope to be relaxed into it. You don't really want to die hanging on to life and having a bunch of regrets and wish you did other stuff, or clinging on and freaking out, right? And so part of a lot of these practices is to practice dying in the hopes that when that time does come for you to go to wherever we go, whether it's a DMT trip or nothingness, that you can do it from a place that's a bit more, feels more like a graduation than an end, maybe.
Well said.